Marty, it's great to have you. Marty Dennis is at our Springfield High Street Church and Springfield. Anybody hear of that in the news lately? And Marty is going to share with us just a few minutes about what's happening on the ground, but more importantly than that, what God is doing, and there it is, what God is doing at Springfield High and how you're reaching a whole new people group. So,
okay. All right. To start out, I just wanted to read one of my favorite books and one of my favorite chapters of a book. Anybody ever read Henry Blackaby's Experiencing God? Wow, this book has been with me since 1994, and it's kind of been a guide for me. I've gone through a couple pastoral changes where I'd refer back to this. It's really what we all need to be living by right now. It simply says, everybody wants to know God's will for your life. But the more important thing is knowing God's will. In other words, what is God doing? What is God willing to be done right where you're at? If not there, where is He willing for you to get into what He's doing somewhere else? Whatever it is. But the gist of this chapter just simply says, finding out what He is doing helps you know what He will want you to do. And I'm just thinking God sends us sometimes when we don't really know the full mission, right? And boy, 9 years ago, I do this as a kind of a point of reference. Back in June, I celebrated my 17th anniversary of when I turned 49. Yeah. Point of reference, I'm 66 years old. I moved to Springfield 9 years ago thinking, I'm on the tail end of this ministry thing, and had a good ride. Doug, you were with me, and we planted, 3 different parent-affiliated congregations. You were a pastor of one of those congregations to a bunch of alcoholics at a campground, and we started a church there, and he had up to 90 people there, and you talk about Celebrate Recovery, you might want to talk to him. He was the director of Celebrate Recovery on the inside of all the prisons in Ohio. So you might want to have a little chat with Doug. He knows all about that. But, okay, now back to Springfield. Weird news is we've been in the news, and some of it's not been real favorable. But when you are on the ground and you hear these things that are not true coming on the news by politicians, it really gets you mad. Because the beauty of this is, the facts are 15 to 20 Haitian refugees live in my city. We are now well over 70,000 people in a city that does not have the infrastructure for that many people. And the fact of the matter is, they've been brought here legally. They're not illegal refugees, as some politicians are saying. They've been brought here legally. No doubt there's some bad eggs. No doubt there's some that might have come a different way. We've got to understand that. But I guarantee with you, some of the other falsehoods that are being said about them are not true. There's not been one I keep in touch with my mayor and our city officials. Not one official documentation of anyone eating an animal that you can't buy in a grocery. And it really bugs me sick because I know and have fallen in love with my Haitian brothers and sisters. About a year and a half ago, I had an opportunity. We started getting an influx of a few Haitians here and there in our worship service. And I met with a couple of guys and found out they were pastors. And so I had them come to the church, and we chatted a while. One was a Pentecostal, he was an Assembly of God, and one was a Baptist pastor. And I found out they had been meeting in someone's living room. And I said, well, how many are in the living room? They could barely speak English. How many? And they said, about 15. But we don't have room anymore in the living room. And I said, I just had them follow me to our fireside room. And I said, what about making this your worship center? And they looked at me and said, really? And we already had a sound system because we had an African congregation that started, and I started an African congregation, and they moved on to Dayton, where the population was a little bit bigger of the African community. And we already had something set up. So the Haitians moved in there, and all of a sudden there were 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 Haitians. And they would packed out that little fireside room too much. And we got to thinking, okay, what can we do to expand this? Because more and more Haitians in our community, how can we better minister to them? And so we moved them to the gym. They wanted to come the same time that we were worshiping. So they're worshiping in the gym the same time we're worshiping in our worship center. And now there are 130 Haitians worshiping in our worship center. And it's just an exciting thing, worshiping in our gym. And it's an exciting thing to hear them when I'm preaching, where they're still worshiping and singing and praising God. And every once in a while I'll just stop and say, do you hear that? There are brothers and sisters that are worshiping and celebrating Jesus. By the way, the more we've ministered to our Haitian brothers and sisters, the more they've fallen in love with the Church of the Nazarene. They've found a safe place. They've found a place of refuge, a place where a congregation says, you know, we love you despite what's going on in our city, despite what people are saying, we love you. And they all want to become members of the Church of the Nazarene. And I'm so grateful for that. I give our district superintendent a call and let him know what was going on. And you know, if you call Andy on anything, you get like 4 more phone calls back, you know. And he's found resources and so many things that have been so helpful, so beneficial. We've seen needs. Now, if you really want to step into what God's doing, God is loving Haitians enough to bring them to a safe place. God is loving Haitians enough to get them out of a volatile. If you do any study about what's going on in Haiti, you understand why we have so many refugees coming to the United States. It's horrid. The stories they tell me and share with me. Also, the stories they share in how some people are treating them. As I said, I have a business meeting with 4 of the Haitian leaders of the congregation. Every week, we just have updates. And by the way, I needed a new church secretary. I hired one just as we were starting the Haitian ministry. And I was having these cordial 20-minute meetings trying to communicate with each other. And Sutton, my secretary, said, oh, I studied abroad. I know French. Okay, all right. So now we have 1.5-hour meetings with our Haitian leaders, and there's no way I could have planned this. There's no way I would have prepared this. All I'm trying to do is to step into what God's doing. And when you step into what God's doing, it never looks the same as what it was before. I just want to tell you, we've got a lot of ridicule. We've had a lot of opposition, but I could care less. I really could, because I would a lot rather be out experiencing challenges and threats than to be sitting around wiping noses with people that don't want to do anything. Okay? So here we go. What is it they need? Well, they need to learn English. Okay. We now have a thing working through FESTA in Columbus. We have English and cultural classes starting Tuesdays and Thursdays. We've just had 83 people trained for helping with the English and culture classes. 14 churches are involved. That's something else I want you to understand. I, for 9 years, have been talking to all my pastor friends, my pastor brothers and sisters, saying, we are the Church of Springfield. We happen to be the High Street campus. The Church of Springfield, High Street campus. Now, when they introduce themselves, they say, I'm a part of the Church of Springfield, and I am, and they would explain the Fellowship campus or the Heritage campus. And I just love what's happened. In doing that, we have become one as a city. We have many churches, and we're striving to be one voice. And we have 14 churches involved in helping me with the FESTA English and culture training classes. And that's going to go on for the next 3 months. Something else that people are complaining about. terrible driving habits. Well, I'm telling you, way too many Americans have those same bad habits. But there are issues. There are issues. They've come to the United States. They don't know all of our laws. They've been issued license or some type of form of permission to drive. What are we going to do? Well, isn't that something? I've been given resources, including driving simulators. And I have, 4 years ago, the guy that's in charge of the state troopers for 6 different bases started attending my church. And he's actually the commander of all the task force keeping everything in law and order in our city right now. And he is going to come and man the driving simulators, and we're going to start teaching them driving skills. So whatever it is, God, what is it you want me to do? That's my prayer every morning. I get on my knees, and I just want to say, God, what is it you want me to know about you today? What is it you want me to do today? What is it that you want me to understand about your mission today? And he speaks to me. Can you believe that he speaks to a 66-year-old man, and he still gives me the privilege of saying, I get to do this. I get to serve. I get to love people that look different than me and act differently than me. I get to be a part of a city and lead a city in showing what Jesus looks like and how he's going to respond in a really challenging time. I just want you to know we've had threats. We've had challenges. I had one of the neo-Nazis come and visit our church 2 weeks ago. And he tried to get in, but he couldn't get in. He came the exact time that he knew the Haitians were there and we were leaving. And I had to put him in his place. And I had to let him know that he was going to be divisive and he wasn't welcome. And I waited until he left and made sure he was gone before I left. But we've got a lot of opposition in our city. The media has not been helping. I just wish people could look to the positive and do what we can to share Jesus with a community that so deeply needs it. Now, I love what some people are doing. I've been getting phone calls from churches that want to know more about the dog and cat situations. And I've been so frustrated with those things. I really have. But then I have churches like Mark Atherton at Xenia Church of the Nazarene, Southwestern Ohio District, calling and saying, Pastor, I just want you to know that we love you and we thank God for what you're doing. And we're sending you $10,000 next week because you need financial assistance. Can I just say that's another win, another takeaway. You step into what God is calling you to do, and you don't worry about the what ifs. You don't worry about buildings. You don't worry about it. You just know if you're stepping into what God is doing, the resources will come. And that's sometimes the last thing that we think that will happen. Well, the first thing is it's an obstacle because we don't have the finances. We don't have the resources. I'm amazed. I'm not smart enough to develop this plan. I'm just amazed that my God, once I said yes to obedience, he says, okay, I will supply this. I will supply you the pastors. I will supply the leadership team. I will supply whatever you need. The resources are there, and it's proven. Our denomination, now we've not received the resources yet, but what I've been told through Andy, Alabaster is sending us funds. Alabaster is sending High Street Church of the Nazarene money to help take care of the ministry to Haitian. I'm just thankful that I get to be a part of it all. In the midst of opposition and all of the other things that are going on, we get to serve a Haitian community. We get to lead people to know Jesus Christ in very unique new ways. And I think that's probably good enough, huh?